911, tell me exactly what's happened.
I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door asking for help. And he's said he just came from a neighbor's house. He's emaciated. He's got tape around his legs. He's hungry and he's thirsty.
Okay.
Who put the ropes on you?
How does a mom go from filming bedtime routines and chore charts to being arrested for abusing her own children? It sounds impossible, but for Ruby Franke, it happened, and the truth behind it is even darker than most people realize. If you've been on YouTube in the last few years, chances are you've seen her channel. 8 passengers, a family vlog, a smiling mom, 6 kids, a tidy house, faith, structure, routine. Millions subscribed. People loved her for being strict, disciplined, and unshakable. She called it parenting with purpose. But while she taught the world how to raise honest kids, her own children were suffering behind closed doors.
One more thing in my house. I'm going to take the scissors, look at me, and I'm going to cut its head off.
And this wasn't just one bad day. It was a slow, painful descent. One that got more extreme with every video, every rule, every time Ruby pushed someone out of her life. Until eventually, it stopped being about parenting. It became about control, about power, and fear.
This home, you don't get personal space, because this is my space, because I'm the parent. If you want your own personal space, you'll need to get your own space.
In this video, we're unpacking the full story of Ruby Franke, how she went from admired to arrested, from momfluencer to convicted child abuser. We'll look at the rise of 8 passengers, the moments fans started asking questions, and the woman who entered Ruby's life and lit the match, Jodi Hildebrandt. But we're going further than that, because there's more to this story than vlogs and punishments. We'll look at how Ruby was raised, what beliefs shaped her, and why she clung so tightly to control. We'll talk about how people like Jodi manipulate, isolate, and break down families under the name of truth. And we'll ask some uncomfortable questions. Why didn't anyone stop this sooner? Why did platforms, schools, neighbors, and even child protective services ignore the red flags? So let's go back to the very beginning, before the followers, before the fame, because to really understand what went wrong, we have to start with Ruby herself. Before everything fell apart, Ruby Franke was just another mom with a camera. She lived in Utah, had 6 kids, and a husband named Kevin. Her channel, 8 Passengers, started as a way to document family life. And honestly, at first, it felt sweet. Homemade dinners, church on Sundays, messy car rides, kids doing homework around the kitchen table. It felt real. People loved them. Not just for the content, but for what they seemed to represent. A wholesome, close-knit family that stuck together and lived by strong values. Ruby talked about parenting with confidence. She believed in discipline, order, and structure, and viewers ate it up. The channel blew up. At its peak, they had over 2 million subscribers, and the money started rolling in, 6 figures a month from brand deals and AdSense. Ruby was getting emails from YouTube directly, congratulating her on Mother's Day. That kind of validation only pushed her harder. She wasn't just a mom, she was building a brand around motherhood. But over time, something started to shift. The content changed. It became less about fun family moments and more about rules, more about obedience, how to discipline your kids, why consequences matter more than comfort. Ruby's tone got sharper. Her energy changed. And the smiles on camera? They started to look forced. The comments changed too. Viewers began noticing things that didn't sit right. Kids being humiliated, strange punishments, personal moments shared without consent. One video in particular started raising red flags, and it wasn't just trolls anymore. People were genuinely worried. We'll get to that video in a second, but right here, this was the turning point. Before Ruby became infamous, she was adored. She looked like a woman who had it all figured out. But behind the scenes, those cracks were already growing wider. To really understand Ruby Franke, we have to go way back, before the camera, before YouTube, back to where it all started. Ruby was born in Utah in 1982, into a deeply religious Mormon family. She was the oldest of 4 sisters and grew up in a community where perfection wasn't just encouraged, it was expected. Image mattered. Clean homes, polite children, obedient wives. There was a silent pressure to present the ideal family at all times. Her childhood wasn't marked by tragedy or violence, but it was filled with structure, high expectations, and a very clear definition of what it meant to be good. Good girls listened. Good girls helped. Good girls didn't talk back. Ruby took all of that to heart. She was raised to believe that motherhood was her ultimate purpose, that raising righteous children wasn't just a goal, it was a spiritual mission. And for a long time, she clung to that identity like a lifeline. When Ruby got older and started her own family, she brought those values with her. But something was different. She wasn't just following rules. She was enforcing them with an intensity that pushed boundaries. And as the pressures of life grew, money, motherhood, public attention, her grip tightened. So what was really going on inside Ruby Franke's mind? It's easy to look at her actions and see cruelty. And yes, what she did was undeniably abusive. But understanding why someone becomes that extreme is a different question. And it starts with control. People who obsess over control often don't feel safe in chaos. And Ruby, she couldn't tolerate unpredictability. She wanted everything to have order: her house, her schedule, her kids. Every moment had to be purposeful. Every rule had to be followed. And if it wasn't, that felt like a threat. That kind of thinking often overlaps with narcissistic traits. Ruby didn't just need control, she needed admiration. She believed her way was the best way, and anyone who questioned it, even her husband or her own children, was seen as the problem. But it wasn't just about ego. It was also about fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of losing the one thing that made her feel valuable, her identity as a perfect mother. When that identity started slipping, when her kids pushed back, when viewers started criticizing, when her marriage began to crumble, Ruby didn't adapt. She doubled down. She got colder, stricter, harsher, and eventually, she found someone who told her she was right all along: Jodi Hildebrandt. Jodi gave Ruby psychological language to justify her control. Words like entitlement, honesty, truth. Suddenly, discipline became correction. Isolation became clarity. Abuse was rebranded as morality.
And this is not a style of parenting. This is parenting. This is truth. And that's why Jodi said this has been around since the dawn of time.
It's not an excuse, but it's a chilling reminder of how quickly toxic beliefs can grow when they're fed by insecurity, reinforced by ideology, and wrapped in the illusion of righteousness. Ruby didn't lose control. She just became obsessed with it. To understand how Ruby's parenting became so extreme, you have to look at the organization that shaped her final descent: Connections. Connections was created by Jodi Hildebrandt, a licensed therapist turned self-styled moral authority. On paper, it looked like a life coaching program focused on relationships, accountability, and personal growth. But in practice, it was a system built on fear, guilt, and shame. Jodi preached a philosophy called principle-based living. It sounds harmless, structured, maybe even empowering, but the way she applied it was something else entirely. In her view, children were naturally manipulative. Crying was a form of control. Wanting privacy was selfish. Seeking comfort was addictive.
It's a privilege to have privacy when you're a child in a home.
Jodi didn't just advise parents to discipline their kids. She encouraged them to strip away anything that could be seen as weakness or dependency. She also redefined language. She called abuse truth-telling. She called isolation clarity. She claimed that discomfort was the path to spiritual integrity. Her words weren't just confusing, they were weaponized. And Ruby wasn't just a client. She became a believer, a recruiter, a disciple. She started co-hosting connection sessions, teaching Jodi's methods, preaching the same ideas that had once shocked her viewers. The transformation wasn't subtle. It was public and chilling. The more involved Ruby became, the more isolated she got. She cut off family. She stopped filming lighthearted vlogs. Her energy changed. Her smile disappeared. Former Connections clients have come forward too. They describe the program as emotionally abusive. They say it turned family members against each other. Spouses were encouraged to see each other as liars, addicts, manipulators. Jodi labeled people safe or not safe based on how obedient they were to her process. In many ways, Connections started functioning like a cult. It had its own language, hierarchy, and belief system. And like many cults, it demanded loyalty over love, obedience over connection. Ruby found certainty in that structure. But it came at the cost of everyone else, especially her kids. While much of the world was still admiring Ruby Franke, someone in her own home was already sounding the alarm: her oldest daughter, Sherry. Sherry had been part of the 8 Passengers channel from the very beginning. Viewers watched her grow up. She was smart, kind, and deeply observant. And as she got older, she started to see things differently. While her mom was teaching the internet about parenting, Sherry was quietly taking notes. At first, she just felt like something was off. Her mom had become colder, stricter, less present. Family dynamics were changing. Conversations were replaced with lectures. Punishments started lasting longer. And then came Jodi. Sherry noticed a dramatic shift when Jodi Hildebrandt entered their lives. Her mom's language changed. The warmth was gone. Everything became about truth and obedience. Even Kevin, her dad, seemed lost, attending Connections meetings and questioning his own reality. Sherry didn't stay quiet. She started researching Jodi and found troubling details. Jodi's therapy license had been revoked. Clients had spoken out. Lawsuits had been filed. And still, Ruby believed every word Jodi said. So Sherry spoke up. She warned relatives. She reached out to her dad. She contacted people who might help. Eventually, she even started using her own platform to speak publicly. It was subtle at first, cryptic Instagram stories, short statements. But after Ruby's arrest, she made it clear. She had been trying to stop this for a long time. And honestly, that's incredibly brave. It's hard enough to stand up to a parent. It's even harder when the world sees that parent as a role model. Sherry risked being cut off, ignored, disbelieved. And she did it anyway, because at the end of the day, she knew her siblings were in danger. She saw what was happening, and she refused to stay silent. Without Sherry, it's terrifying to think how long this could have continued. She was the first crack in Ruby's perfect image. It wasn't just Ruby who failed her children. This story is also about the systems that were supposed to protect them, and didn't. Let's start with YouTube. Ruby's content was online for years. Millions of views, thousands of comments. Viewers flagged videos, reported abuse, left detailed timestamps of concerning behavior. And still, nothing was done. Her channel kept running. Ads kept playing. Money kept rolling in. Why? Because she wasn't breaking community guidelines. At least, not clearly enough. YouTube's rules didn't catch emotional neglect or psychological control. They weren't built to detect coercion, hiding behind family-friendly thumbnails. Then there's CPS, Child Protective Services. After the beanbag video went viral,
I don't think our viewers know that.
You've been sleeping on a beanbag.
I've been sleeping on a beanbag since October, and they gave my room back like 2 weeks ago.
people contacted authorities. Ruby had documented everything. She wasn't hiding it. She was explaining it, justifying it, and somehow that worked. CPS came to the house. They looked around, and they left. No follow-up, no long-term monitoring. Despite multiple red flags and continued online concern, they walked away. And the cycle continued. Neighbors noticed too. They reported seeing less of the children, sometimes not at all, but with no visible violence, no screaming, no broken bones. Authorities didn't intervene. So many people saw something, felt something, and nothing changed. That's the hardest part to accept, because this didn't happen in secret. Ruby filmed it. Jodi taught it. Their ideologies were public. But until a bleeding 12-year-old boy knocked on a stranger's door, no one stopped them. The system failed. The platform failed. The culture of silence failed. And the cost? It was paid by children. This isn't about blaming one agency or one company. It's about facing a reality where accountability often comes too late, where we trust that someone else will step in, that someone else will say, "This isn't right." In the background of all this, there was someone else, Kevin Franke, Ruby's husband, the father of the 6 children. And one of the biggest questions people still ask is, where was he? At first glance, Kevin looked like the calm counterbalance to Ruby's intensity. In the early vlogs, he was warm, quiet, and often deferential. He worked as a professor at BYU. He believed in structure too, but he seemed more relaxed, less strict, more willing to play and laugh. But as Ruby grew more controlling, Kevin seemed to fade into the background. He attended Connections sessions. Jodi labeled him as weak, a Zeta male, someone who needed to be corrected. And rather than fight that label, Kevin tried to adapt. He followed the rules. He questioned himself. He wanted to be better, for Ruby, for the family. But it didn't work. Jodi pushed him further away. Ruby started seeing him as part of the problem. Not strong enough, not supportive enough, not in full alignment with truth. Eventually, Kevin was forced out. He moved out of the house and wasn't allowed regular contact with the kids. It's easy to feel anger toward him, to ask, why didn't he do more? Why didn't he stop it? But the truth may be more complex. Kevin was in a toxic dynamic too, a psychological system that broke down his confidence and isolated him from his own family. He didn't just lose his home, he lost his authority, his voice, his ability to protect. Still, he wasn't powerless. Eventually, Kevin began to speak. After Ruby's arrest, he gave interviews. He acknowledged that something had been wrong for a long time, that he had doubts, that he was afraid, and that he wished he had acted sooner. Kevin wasn't abusive like Ruby. but he was absent when it mattered most. And in a family falling apart, silence can be just as dangerous. He was the quiet one. For a long time, Ruby Franke's channel seemed like a model of disciplined parenting. She wasn't cuddly or permissive, but people admired her for being structured. Tough love, they called it. Clear rules, clear consequences. But over time, the tone started to shift, and viewers noticed. It started with little things, like Ruby talking about her kids doing chores before breakfast, or proudly saying they had to earn their lunch. It felt strict, but not illegal, until one video crossed a line. Eve, Ruby's youngest daughter, had forgotten her lunch for school. Ruby told viewers the school called to ask if she could bring something, and Ruby said no. It's her responsibility, she explained, and I hope no one shares food with her. Eve was 5 years old. That moment shook people, but it didn't stop there.
I'm only gonna say it one more time, and then you're gonna lose the privilege to eat dinner.
A few months later, Ruby uploaded a vlog revealing that her son, Chad, had been sleeping on a beanbag in the basement for 7 months.
My bedroom was taken away for 7 months, and then you give it back like a couple weeks ago.
I don't think our viewers know that.
His room was taken away as punishment for making a joke to his younger brother. That video exploded online. Viewers flooded the comments. Some emailed Child Protective Services. Others shared clips with psychologists. Everyone had the same question. Is this abuse? After the warning signs, things didn't improve. They got worse. Ruby became more withdrawn. Her tone on camera turned colder, more intense. The channel shifted away from lighthearted family moments toward rigid routines and harsh consequences. She began talking about discipline as if it were a mission, pain as a path to growth. And soon, those ideas moved from the screen into real life, out of sight. In late 2022, Ruby stopped uploading to 8 Passengers. She told viewers it was to protect her children. But behind the scenes, something darker was happening. By this point, she was fully aligned with Jodi Hildebrandt, and Jodi had become more than a coach. She was a spiritual guide, a partner in belief, and someone Ruby now trusted more than her own family. Together, they launched a new platform, Moms of Truth. But it wasn't truth they were teaching. It was control. Jodi preached that children were inherently bad, that they needed to earn love, that they had no right to comfort, privacy, or even physical safety.
Push back and say, whoa, that's mean. You're not going to be loved. Your children are going to kick you out of their lives. So when people say, well, if you do that, then your child's not going to trust you. If you do that, then your child's not going to love you. Well, exactly. I'm just revealing that my child is refusing to love unconditionally. I don't want anyone in my life who's not going to be loving. So if my child will only love me if I give them what they want, then that's not really love.
So this takes a very strong soul, because most of us are not even willing to consider not having our children in our lives. And I hope that you'll reconsider.
And Ruby followed every word. When her kids acted selfish, they were sent to live with Jodi. No phone, no school, no outside contact. That's when the real abuse began. Russell and Eve were forced to do grueling physical tasks outdoors in extreme heat. They weren't given proper shoes, sunscreen, or even water. If they complained, they were punished. If they collapsed, they were ignored. If they resisted, they were restrained, sometimes tied to furniture, other times to Jodi herself. And when that wasn't enough, Ruby and Jodi escalated again. They rubbed cayenne pepper and honey into the children's wounds, told them it was for their repentance. Russell was suffocated, held underwater, slapped, starved, left outside overnight. At times, he couldn't walk. At other times, he couldn't speak. And yet, in Ruby's mind, this was still parenting, still truth. Her children weren't being raised. They were being broken down. By the summer of 2023, the abuse inside Jodi Hildebrandt's house had reached a breaking point. The youngest children, Russell and Eve, were isolated, emaciated, and terrified. And then one day, something incredible happened. Russell escaped. He had tried before, but this time he made it. With bruises on his body, duct tape around his ankles, and wounds that showed months of pain, he found the strength to run. He reached a neighbor's door, knocked, waited, nearly gave up. And then, someone opened the door. The man who answered took one look at him and immediately called 911. What paramedics found that day was worse than anyone expected. Russell was starving, injured, covered in sores and tape burns. His bones were showing through his skin. He looked like he had survived a war, but he wasn't the only one. Russell told police his little sister Eve was still inside Jodi's home. Officers rushed there. When they entered, they found her sitting on the floor, silent.
Come on, my buddy. I'm a police officer. Hey, you okay? Is it just you in here? I'm Sergeant Tobler. What's your name? We at first thought it might have been a little boy sitting there cross-legged, just staring up at us. You doing okay? You don't want to talk to me? Yeah, that's okay.
That same day, Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt were arrested.
Step out.
I have my attorney.
That's great. Step out of the house.
When she answered, she had a phone in her hand.
Whoa!
We're just gonna stand up.
Just have a seat right there for me.
Do you have a search warrant?
We'll explain it after this.
Okay, just place your hand behind your back for me.
And the details that followed were horrifying. Court documents described extreme malnourishment, physical restraint, isolation, and intentional injury. And Russell's escape wasn't just brave, it was life-saving. He broke the cycle. Because if he hadn't run that day, the outcome might have been very different. It ended the silence, and it finally gave the world a glimpse into what Ruby Franke had been hiding all along. If you only watched Ruby Franke's videos, you might think she had it all. A clean home, well-behaved kids, strong values, a perfect marriage. She looked like the kind of mom others tried to copy. But perfection is a dangerous mask. Behind the vlogs, the smiles, the edited family moments, there was something else: pressure, control, performance. Ruby didn't just want to be a good mom. She wanted to be seen as the best mom. And not just in her home, but online, in her church, in her community. Her identity was tied to how well she performed motherhood. It wasn't about connection, it was about image. What happened to Ruby Franke's children is beyond heartbreaking. It's the kind of story that sticks with you, not because it's dramatic, but because it feels so personal, so close to home. She wasn't a stranger hiding in the shadows. She was a mom on YouTube. She posted every day, shared recipes, family outings, advice, smiles, laughter. And for years we watched. And maybe that's the scariest part. She didn't hide the abuse. She justified it. She called it truth, called it parenting. And for a while, a lot of people believed her. But the question we have to ask is bigger than Ruby. How many other families are out there, quietly suffering under the weight of control, fear, and image? How many kids are trying to be good enough for a parent who only sees them as a reflection of their own worth? This story is about Ruby, but it's also about the pressure to be perfect, about the systems that let things slide, about the culture that rewards image over honesty. And most of all, it's about the power of one voice. Russell, a 12-year-old boy who chose to run. Sherry, a daughter who refused to stay silent. People who chose courage over comfort. And if there's anything we should take from this, it's that silence never protects. Perfection isn't worth pain. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is ask hard questions. So if you've made it this far, thank you for caring, for listening, for being someone who wants to know the truth, even when it hurts. And if you want to keep hearing stories that matter, that uncover, that hold people accountable, subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with someone who should see it, because this story is over. But there are so many others just beginning, like the one involving Sean Diddy Combs, another tale of power, abuse, and secrets that are just now coming to light. Click the video on screen to watch that full timeline now. And remember, truth isn't always comfortable, but it's always necessary.